Hi. First of all, I do want to thank 4Kids for this opportunity because I have been waiting a long time to tell this story. I remember one day my mom took my hand and she put it on her stomach so that I could feel the baby moving inside of her. And then I remember me and my 2 sisters, Debbie and Diane, we were sitting in the back seat of the car, peering over the front seat so we could see this new baby coming home with us. We were so excited. Now, most of you who grew up with a little brother would probably describe him as a brat, but not me. My brother was my best friend. He was my confidant, my hangout buddy, the shoulder to lean on. We just did everything together. So much so that when I decided to leave New York, a month later, here comes my brother. David was tall and handsome, and the women loved him. Everybody wanted to take him home to mama because he was a nice guy. He was polite, and he was courteous, and he was generous, and he was full of faith and love. David was 30 when he started getting the headaches. And the headaches were so debilitating that he couldn't even go to work. The headaches were so painful, he couldn't raise his head up off the pillow. So I took him to the doctor so we could try to figure out what was wrong with him, because before now, he had never had any symptoms of any kind, no signs of anything, just these headaches. And we took him to the doctor, and they tried all these tests, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. So they finally decided we're going to do a spinal tap. And they explained to us they're going to take this long needle and put it in his back and whatnot. And I remember the night before, I asked him, I said, "Are you scared?" And he said, "No." And I said, "You're not?" He said, "No." He said, "I believe in God." And that was my brother. He was just always full of faith. He always affirmed life. He didn't let things bother him. He didn't get frustrated. He never blamed anybody for anything. He was cool, calm, and collective. So much so, we used to give him the nickname Cool Joe. I don't know if you remember the Peanuts character with the Snoopy and the glasses. So they gave him the spinal tap, and the results came back, and they found out he had meningitis. And the doctor said, "Don't worry about it. We'll just pump him up with some medicine, and he'll be home in 7 days." Well, those 7 days turned into 21 days, and they were the most excruciating days of both of our lives. David was in the hospital, and his health started to go down quickly, fast. And he was starting to lose his voice, and his vision started to become blurred. So we came up with a system to be able to communicate with one another in the event that things got worse, which they did, because by the 14th day of his hospital stay, he was totally blind and he could not hear anymore. So one of the ways we communicated was through tapping. 1 tap, yes. 2 taps, no. And I always dreaded that he would ask me that one question, "Vic, will I get my hearing and my sight back?" 2 taps. The other way we had decided to communicate with one another was I would write letters in the palm of his hand, and as long as the word wasn't too long, he could figure out what I was saying because he still had his full mind and he could talk, he just couldn't see and he couldn't hear. So when his best friend Mike was coming into town to see him, we tried to convey this information to David by writing Mike's name in his hand. But no matter what we did, he could not figure out what we were saying. And Mike came into town only just for a few hours. He couldn't even stay the whole night. So it was really, really urgent for us to let him know that his best friend was here with him. So we tried again, and we would write Mike in his hand, and he could not figure out what we wanted to say. So we came up with something else. We said, wait a minute, okay, let's try something else. Mike, Come here. Come closer to the bed. And so we took David's hand and we put it on top of Mike's head. And David felt the top of Mike's head, and then he kind of took his hand and put it on the side of Mike's face. And Mike had these big rim glasses on, because remember, this is like the early 90s, and so bigger was better. And so David felt these big old glasses, and then he went back and touched the top of Mike's head, and he felt the top of that nappy head, and he said, Mike? Mike? My man, Mike? Oh my gosh, that was one of the most powerful moments we could have felt, because he knew his best friend in the whole wide world had come all the way to see him. Well, the next couple of days, David's health just kept plummeting. It was getting worse and worse. And one night, my sister and I was sitting there at his bedside, and we could tell it was coming soon. So even though he couldn't hear us, and even though he couldn't see us, we took his hand and we said, David, it's okay if you go. It's okay. And when you go, you look for the light. And when you see that light, you'll know Mommy and Daddy is there waiting for you. So the next day I went to work, and I was sitting at my desk, and I got that fateful call, come now. I got out, got into my car, rushed to the hospital, ran down the hallways into his room, but he had already gone. So much had happened so fast. We didn't get a chance to plan and prepare things. Everything just came at us so fast. From the time that he was first diagnosed until his death, it was only 3 weeks. 3 weeks from the time they first told him he had meningitis. That was the first time all of us, even David, found out that he had AIDS. David was not someone in the high-risk group. He didn't use drugs. He never had a blood transfusion. He didn't have same-sex relations, so we don't know how he got it, but he did. And like I said, everything happened so fast. We never got a chance to do all the things and say all the things that we wanted to, but he did say one thing to me that I need to share with you tonight. He said, if it can happen to me, it can happen to you. Get tested. Don't guess at your status. Know your status. The singer Alicia Keys is in a campaign now for AIDS, and one of the things she says is, break the silence. Be empowered even in the face of AIDS. And that's exactly what my hero did. Thank you.